If you're like most people, you get anxious about work. Lying down in bed at night, you might be thinking about all the things you need to get done the next day and getting stressed over what you might miss or let fall through the cracks. On Sunday afternoons, you already start to feel the dread of starting the work week and can't relax or enjoy your evening. I think these anxieties are often due to lack of organization and planning. At least for me, some of the thoughts that keeps me distracted on evenings and weekends are things like, what do I have scheduled for tomorrow? What are some of the deadlines coming up next week? Do I have enough time to get these things done? If we spend a little time getting these distracting thoughts out of our heads and into our calendar, and carve out the appropriate time to prepare for these upcoming meetings and to work on these upcoming deadlines, I believe we can reduce a lot of the stress and anxiety. In this video, I'll share my tips for managing time and preparing for future activities effectively. Anything that has a date and time attached to it should be logged in your calendar. This could be a meeting, a deadline, or any planned activities. But recording these in the calendar is just half the equation. We have to review and act on them. When we're unorganized and engaged in busy work, it's hard to proactively plan our time. We forget to schedule that important meeting, or we don't bother carving out time to work on that special project. And even when we do plan, it's harder still to pull ourselves away from busy work to review what's coming up and actually follow through on the planned activities. I can think of a few occasions where I had to decline a meeting at the last minute since I wasn't prepared. On those occasions, I had mindlessly accepted the meeting at some point, not bothering to check the agenda, only to realize at the last minute that I had an active part in that meeting that I was totally unprepared for. Another example would be for when I had scheduled dedicated time to work on a project, but used that time to work on something else completely unrelated instead. When we fail to plan the work and work the plan, we have no control over our time and we end up reacting to other people's priorities. So get in the habit of planning your work and review them regularly. Not just activities that are coming up today and tomorrow, but those that are due next week and the following week. By training ourselves to see beyond what's just in front of us and into distant activities, we can be more strategic and allow ourselves more time to prepare and remove some of the anxieties. Every Friday, I review my calendar activities for the next 2-3 weeks. This way, I know what's coming ahead and I can plan for them with plenty of time. If I see any risk due to competing priorities or due to heavy workload, I can proactively manage it rather than adjusting things at the last minute and surprising my stakeholders. So for example, if I need to provide an update in a meeting 2 weeks from now, I'll block out working time in my calendar to make sure that I can make progress in my work and provide meaningful update in 2 weeks. If meeting times conflict with these working blocks, I can evaluate which meetings I can eliminate to make time for work. Reviewing and planning for these upcoming activities 2 to 3 weeks ahead on a Friday gives me peace of mind and helps me relax on the weekends. This leads me to the second part of my process, setting a baseline for working hours. Our time is finite. It's important to create a baseline for how many hours we plan to work in a week and try our best to hold on to these hours. This will set realistic expectations for what we can and cannot achieve in a given period and help us prioritize what's important. Keep in mind that when you work for someone or some company, at the most basic level, we're essentially trading our time for money. That's why most organizations set guidelines or expectations for working hours, like Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So when we construct our baseline for working hours, keep this time equals money analogy in mind. So let's say that our organization expects us to work a minimum of 40 hours per week. If we think of each hour as a unit of measure, we have a baseline time budget of 40 units per week. If we're able to reframe our thinking around working hours this way as a concrete, finite resource that will be depleted, we'll be more mindful in how we allocate and spend this time during the working week. Our priorities will become clearer this way, and we'll have a better idea of what we can realistically achieve in the week without having to overextend ourselves. Also, with this framing, psychologically, it'll make it easier for us to say no to someone or some meeting that will deplete our precious units of time. Think about it this way. If you only had $40 to spend in a week, you'll be more thoughtful to spend every dollar only on the essentials and not give them away so freely. Now, using the planner of your choice, whether it's Microsoft Outlook, Google Calendar, or even a paper planner, plot out how you will spend the 40 units of time. Some will be allocated to meetings and some will be allocated to working time. And don't forget to allocate time for lunch, breaks, time for thinking, planning, and buffer for unplanned activities that might just pop up. If you have a lot of work and meetings and they won't fit into your baseline budget of 40 hours, you have to make some decisions. Will you go over your budget and spend extra hours working to get everything done? Will you prioritize activities for this week and defer the rest to the following week? Or will you talk to your manager to get additional support or get the task reassigned to someone else? As you work through the week, your plans will change, for sure. Some activities will get added, others rescheduled, and yet others canceled. Keep track of these changes in your planner. Analyzing this data will provide insights to your workload and how you're spending your time. If you're spending too much time in meetings and not enough on actual work, you may need to adjust. And if you notice that you're routinely going over your time budget, it might be necessary to speak to your manager about additional support or even redistribution of your work. The data will help facilitate that conversation. And if you're on the Microsoft 365 platform, there's a tool called My Analytics that will automate some of these insights, but that's outside the scope of this video. So in conclusion, if you want to be effective with your time, plan your work in the calendar and work your plan when the time comes. And when planning your work, make sure that you're doing this within the constraint of your baseline hours. Yes, there are peaks and valleys to any business, where some weeks you'll be putting more hours than others. And of course, we need to be flexible to the needs of the business. However, if you're doubling your baseline hours every week, it's worth reviewing your workload and your calendar activities to see what can be adjusted. Well, that's it for today. Hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Thanks, and bye for now.